All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mindgasms. I'm going to do part 5 of my Mindgasms blog series on the book The History of Sexuality, part 1 by Michel Foucault. He did what is called historiography in many of his books that are often put into the category of philosophy. Although they're not necessarily philosophy, they're more history. Historiography specifically is basically the history of ideas, concepts, and perspectives. In Discipline and Punish, which I made a video about a while ago, I'll add a link for that somewhere in the video and then the description for this, Foucault writes about the history of cultural attitudes and behavior toward criminals. In Madness and Civilization, which I will make a video or write a blog about later, Foucault talks about the history of cultural attitudes and behavior toward people with mental disorders. In all of the handful or so of his books that I've read, Foucault seems to analyze how these cultural attitudes have changed from approximately the 1600s to the 1800s and through to today. He also uses a multi-factoral analysis. He explains the contributing causes that led to behaviors and attitudes changing from many different angles. There are a lot of reasons that attitudes towards certain groups of people and behaviors changed throughout history. So I'm starting off this video by explaining more about Foucault's perspective on power. As I said last time, his ideas about it are incredibly complex. They require going into a lot of detail. And I know the last video was longer than my usual solo videos. It was the longest one I've done so far because I covered so much of his definition on power along with other topics. So I'm going to focus more specifically just on explaining more details about his definition of power here. Anyway, he continues the section on power by claiming that it's not acquired or shared. It cannot be held onto or slip away. It moves and exercises its force across innumerable points. So it's not something that you don't have and then you get it. You can't hold on to it and then have it taken away from you. Power is always moving through and between us, within our interactions. It seems like Foucault sees it almost as an ever-present metaphysical force. Power relations are not separate from other types of interactions. The examples that Foucault uses are economic processes, along with knowledge and sexual relations. So power is part of all relationships and interactions. It's present in how we behave, form our beliefs, and influence our culture. This next quote is really important, especially since public intellectuals like Jordan Peterson get Foucault's perspective on power wrong all the time. Foucault says, quote, "Power comes from below." Did you hear that? Power comes from below. That is, there is no binary and all-encompassing opposition between rulers and the ruled at the root of power relations and serving as a general matrix, unquote. I myself said that. Did you hear that? Power comes from below, because I thought that was worth repeating. I love this. And like I said, no one ever fucking mentions this when they talk about Foucault and power. Power comes from below. This straw man narrative of Foucault arguing that only the rulers have power and it is always exercised over the powerless is completely wrong. The oppressed dregs of society have power too, and they can use it against the people who exercise power over them. Since power is always moving in multiple directions, the ruled are always exercising it over their leaders, just as much as the latter use their power against the ruled. There is no binary opposition between the rulers and the ruled. Public intellectuals get this wrong all the fucking time. They say that Foucault's position has to do with a binary opposition in power between leaders and people. They claim that Foucault thinks power is always bad and is only used by the powerful to oppress the powerless. Remember the important information that I said in my last video about that? Foucault explicitly wrote that power is not always bad. You can go find that book in the quote right now in History of Sexuality, Volume 1. He says that power is not always bad. He specifically clarifies that in detail. He specifically stated that government is the only fatal form of power as well. Again, he was basically an anarchist. not at all a Marxist, as people like Jordan Peterson assert. The only time that power is bad is when it's used by rulers to oppress people below them. When it is being used in any other everyday situation, like sex or reading a book, power is present but good. It's also positive when the ruled use it against those who control them. Power can be good. Foucault says next that there is always resistance to power, yet it's never separate from power. The resistance is part of it. This is because power comes from all directions, since it's part of all human interactions. So it's always being rebelled against by other power. It's as if metaphorical armies are always fighting wars against each other to seize it. As Foucault puts it, there is, quote, no soul of revolt, no source of all rebellions, or pure law of the revolutionary, unquote. No one can identify or locate any one source from which all resistance emanates. It is within all power and all parts of it. There are always multiple rebellions against it, all of which are unique in their own way. They could be possible, improbable, solitary, violent, sacrificial, necessary, spontaneous, or any other combination of countless different characteristics. But they can all only exist in the field of power relations. These forms of resistance are not always defeated. They exist in an endless process of different revolts using their power against other power in order to seize it for themselves. All right, so I'll stop here for now. I'm probably going happened. Okay then. Well, that was bad. I'm going to try to edit out this last part. Until next time, everyone.